got him in his drive already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s. Well, you know, I made the hooks. I made the melodies. Yeah. I made the shit, dog. I'm the man. I banged it just enough to get my room so I could ram this shit up, ram it up his ass. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face.
Max B and Jim Jones were once closer than brothers. But the day Jim chose fame over family was the moment Max stopped being his hitmaker and became the ghost that's haunted him ever since.
Jim Jones, compare the names. Look, Max Bigavel, Jim Jones. That don't even add up. That's not on my level, man.
From allegedly taking his girl, wrecking his ride, and turning Harlem into a battlefield just to make a point, Max B wasn't playing games. Let's get into it. Charlie Wingate's story begins in the heart of Harlem, the legendary uptown jungle where pain and pride live side by side. Raised in the Abraham Lincoln Projects, Max's early life was survival on hard mode. His mother was trapped in addiction, in and out of the system, leaving his grandmother to raise him. She was his rock, the only steady thing in a world that never stayed still, but even love couldn't shield him from Harlem's pull. Long before he was writing hooks that echoed through the East Coast, young Charlie found his voice in the boys' choir of Harlem. That's where the first traces of that signature Max B melody, the wavy, half-sung, half-spoken flow, started to take shape. Still, music couldn't silence the streets. By 18, Max was already caught in the grind. In 1997, he was locked up on robbery charges and served nearly 8 years. But that bid didn't break him, it built him. When he came home in 2005, he walked out different, sharper, hungrier, reborn. That's when the world met. Max Bigavelli, a name stitched together from legends. Biggie, Machiavelli, and Giga. He saw himself as the new hybrid, the raw emotion of Pac, the smooth bravado of Biggie and the slick ambition of Jay-Z. A street poet with pain in his voice and waves in his veins.
So your name is Max B, aka Max Bigavel. We know Bigavel stands for Big Jig and Pac, right? But where did the
Big
name...
Jig and Machiavelli, baby.
Yeah.
Big Jig and Machiavelli.
When Max touched down, Harlem was electric. The Diplomats had the city on lock. Cameron and Jim Jones were running every block from Lenox to Broadway. Through Cam, Max met Jim, and that connection would change everything. Before long, he signed to Jim's label, Bird Gang Records, and started cooking with Harlem legend Dame Grease, The Chemistry. Instant. Max dropped his first tape, $1 Million Baby, in 2006, and the streets lost their minds. That voice, that swagger, that pain-laced melody, it hit different. Harlem hadn't heard anything like it. Bird Gang was stacked with talent, Stacked Bundles was already rising. And with Max in the mix, Jim Jones had a dream team. Max became the secret weapon, the pen, the voice, the wave behind Jim's biggest moments. Records like Baby Girl weren't just songs, they were statements. Every hook Max touched turned to gold, but no matter how bright the studio lights got, the shadows of the streets followed close behind. And in September 2006, those shadows caught up through his ex, Gina Conway. Max heard about a man named Alan Plowden, a flashy player deep in a mortgage and mail fraud hustle. Always dripped out, always holding cash. According to Gina, the temptation was too much. Max saw an easy come up, a quick score that could change everything. She claimed he told her straight up. They could make it happen, and everyone would eat.
Friend Charlie Wingate, aka Max B, a rapper, about the men's money. Then Wingate reaches out to this man, Calvin Leardom.
What happened next still sparks debate, but one thing's certain, it ended in tragedy. Max wasn't physically there when it went down, but prosecutors painted him as the mastermind behind it all. Gina Conway, who at the time was juggling life between hustling, stripping, and street politics, testified that Max was the one who sent her and his stepbrother, Kelvin Sims Leardom, to hit Alan Plowden at a Holiday Inn in New Jersey. The plan sounded simple on paper. Wait until Plowden left for the club. Break in, grab whatever cash they could, and disappear before sunrise. But from the start, everything went wrong. Gina and Sims reportedly spent hours driving in circles, missing exits, and arguing over directions. By the time they finally got there, Plowden had already returned, fast asleep beside another woman. Then, in the chaos, a man named David Taylor walked into the room, someone who wasn't even supposed to be part of the story. That's when things spiraled out of control. Sims panicked and fired, a single fatal shot to Taylor's face. What was meant to be a quick score had just turned into a cold-blooded murder.
It all began the morning of September 22nd at the Fort Lee Holiday Inn. Police are called there after a man is shot to death. The victim, David Taylor from Florida, was staying in room 227.
It all started on the morning of September 22nd at the Fort Lee Holiday Inn. Police rushed to the scene after reports of a shooting. Inside room 227, they found David Taylor, a man from Florida, dead from a gunshot wound. The investigation moved fast, and the first domino to fall was Gina Conway. Once she got picked up, she broke almost immediately. In exchange for leniency, she handed over a 169-page confession, putting every piece of the puzzle together, and putting Max B right at the center of it. According to her statement, Max was the one who orchestrated everything, promising her loyalty, love, and a better life if she played her part. But when the feds came knocking for Max, they didn't come lightly. He was arrested and hit with felony murder and conspiracy charges, facing the kind of time that could erase a man's name forever. His bail? A staggering $2 million. As Max sat alone in that cold cell, the world outside kept spinning, especially for Jim Jones. The same man who once called him brother was now at the height of his career, writing the success of We Fly High Ballin', a record that took over radio and the streets. But behind bars, Max claimed something different, that he was the true architect of Jim's biggest hits, including Ballin', the record that made Jim a superstar. He said he wrote it, shaped it, lived it. 10 long months passed before Max's bail was finally reduced to $90,000. That's when Jim stepped in, but not like a friend. Instead of helping out of loyalty, he allegedly turned Max's freedom into leverage. Reports say Jim agreed to post bail only if Max signed away his publishing rights and committed to 6 albums under his label. With his back against the wall and no other lifeline, Max signed the deal. In that moment, Jim owned everything: the music, the sound, the future. When Max B walked out of jail in July 2007, he wasn't the same man. He was harder, colder, and filled with resentment. He had lost more than time, he'd lost ownership of his wave. Meanwhile, Jim Jones' empire was growing, powered by the very sound Max had built. Every wavy ad-lib, every melodic hook that echoed through Harlem streets, Jim got paid, while Max was left to watch from the sidelines. So when Max finally got his freedom, he didn't come back looking for peace. He came back for payback.
Got him in his drive already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s.
Well, you know,
I made incredible. I made the hooks. I made the melodies.
Yeah.
I made the shit, dog. I'm the man.
It wasn't just about business anymore. It was personal. The brotherhood had crumbled. The loyalty was gone. And all that was left inside Max B was cold rage and a plan for payback. He walked away from Bird Gang with a mission. If Jim Jones wasn't going to give him his due, Max would take it by force, publicly. Nothing was off limits. It didn't take long for Max to find the perfect partner in rebellion: French Montana. Back then, French wasn't the superstar we know today. He was still that hungry Bronx hustler pushing his Cocaine City DVDs, documenting the raw street life of New York. French already had his own tension with Jim, sparked by street rumors and a shooting incident that had Jones' name floating around in the mix. So when Max and French linked, it wasn't just collaboration, it was chemistry forged in war. Together, they formed Coke Wave, a movement that would soon become legendary across the mixtape circuit. 2 outcasts, 1 mission: to take over the underground and bury their enemies in sound. Max knew the industry wasn't coming to rescue him. He didn't own his publishing, didn't have a label behind him, but he still had his weapon. The streets loved his voice, his melodies, his pain. So he went rogue. Max started flooding the block with free music, unapologetically raw, letting the people hear what the system tried to silence. But these weren't just songs. They were sonic bombs aimed directly at Jim Jones and his camp. His first major strike? The mixtape, Public Domain 3. The cover alone was disrespect turned art. Max standing in a graveyard surrounded by tombstones engraved with names like Millie Jim Jones and Vanilli Joel Santana. It was a full-on mockery, comparing the Dipset duo to Milli Vanilli, the fake singers who lip-synced their way to fame. In Max's eyes, Jim and Joel's were frauds living off the sound he birthed. Then came the diss records, Lip Sing Rappin', and countless freestyles where Max fired off lines like, "I gave them the loot, but them dudes done blew it." Every track hit harder than the last. But Max wasn't satisfied with just lyrical shots. He went for humiliation. The internet exploded when he dropped one of the most savage diss records of that era, She Touched It in Miami. On the track, Max claimed that Chrissy Lampkin, Jim's longtime girlfriend, had been with him in ways too wild to ignore. The bars were explicit, the tone was taunting, and the laughter in Max's voice made it worse. He painted Jim as a man being mocked by the very people around him, and the streets ate it up. Jim Jones was blindsided. He tried damage control, denying Max's claims, calling him a washed-up artist, and swearing that Max never wrote We Fly High. But the receipts said otherwise. The reference tracks were out there, and Max's voice was undeniable. Suddenly, people started asking the question Jim hated most: who really made the wave? And Max? He wasn't done. He started talking about real-life run-ins, claiming Jim once tried to corner him in a parking lot. According to Max, he saw the ambush coming, slammed his car into Jim's Bentley, threw a few punches, and sped off. Whether it was fact or legend didn't even matter. The story added to the myth. The dents in Max's car became trophies, proof that this war wasn't just lyrical. Maxby had gone from a ghostwriter in the shadows to Harlem's most dangerous voice. And every move he made was another crack in Jim Jones's empire.
Just enough to get my room so I could ram his up, ram it up in. Right? My window was there, he tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face.
By late 2008, the legend of Maxby had grown beyond music. The streets believed in him. French Montana vouched for him. The myth was alive, and Max was living it. Then came November 2008. Max and French decided it was time to stop talking and confront Jim Jones face to face. They pulled up deep, walking straight into a Manhattan studio where Jim was recording. No sneak disses, no hiding behind records. They wanted him to feel the pressure, to know the streets weren't safe for him anymore. Word is, Jim saw what was unfolding and made a move Max would never forgive. He called the cops. Whether true or not, that rumor spread fast, and it hit harder than any diss track. To the streets, that was the ultimate betrayal of the code. Tension turned into chaos. Their crews clashed again at a Brooklyn nightclub, bottles flying, chairs crashing, and K9 units storming in. It looked like a scene out of a movie, but it was all real. The war between Max and Jim had consumed everything. By the time the dust settled, Maxby had done more than humiliate Jim Jones. He turned him into a running joke. Max wasn't just an artist anymore. He was a folk hero. The underground's chosen one. A man who didn't need a label, didn't need radio, just a mic, a melody, and the people. Even while trapped in contracts that stole his earnings, Max found freedom through sound, dropping record after record that the streets still echo to this day. But while Max was winning the cultural war, another battle was brewing, one that couldn't be fought with lyrics. The courtroom. Because behind all the music and mayhem, Max was facing a criminal case that threatened to erase his wave forever. June 9, 2009, Bergen County Courthouse. Maxby walked in with his head high, that same confident sway that made him a star. Cameras flashing. Fans chanting. His lawyers talked big, saying they tore apart the prosecution's main witness, Gina Conway, a young woman whose testimony would decide his fate. Gina had already flipped. She struck a deal with prosecutors, turning on Max and his stepbrother Kelvin Leardam in exchange for a lighter sentence. The defense painted her as a bitter ex, claiming she twisted the story out of heartbreak and desperation to save herself. They said Gina even admitted that Max never planned a robbery, that she only used his name to convince Kelvin to go through with it. But swagger can't win a courtroom. When the jury came back, reality hit harder than any street beef ever could. Maxby was found guilty on 9 of 11 counts: armed robbery, conspiracy, aggravated assault, and felony murder. The prosecution called him the mastermind, saying he planned the whole thing, even if he wasn't there when it went down. Gina Conway walked away with 18 years. Max got 75. On September 3, 2009, the wave that had once swept Harlem crashed against the walls of a prison cell. But even then, the people never stopped believing the story wasn't over.
Right around that time, Max B gets found guilty on 9 of 11 counts, including felony murder. And he gets sentenced to, was it 75 years?
Yeah, 75.
Max B was now facing a long road, eligible for parole in 2042. In an instant, he went from Harlem street sensation to a prison inmate. While the streets grieved, Jim Jones appeared to celebrate. From a business perspective, Jones thought he had executed the perfect checkmate. Max was locked away, his voice silenced, and every piece of music he had created, every hook, every melody, every wavy ad-lib, still funneled straight into Jones' pocket. Jones didn't hold back. Publicly, he mocked Max, called him goofy names, labeled him irrelevant, and kept repeating that Max was washed before he even fully got started. In interviews, he projected the image that he'd moved on, that Max was just old inventory, a product to be used and shelved forever. But Max B wasn't done. Even from behind bars, his presence couldn't be erased. The streets still loved him. His influence carried weight, his legacy demanded respect. Max stayed connected, reaching out to French Montana, DJs, and independent labels, keeping his wave alive in every way possible. Then, in May 2010, a major legal shift changed everything. A judge ruled that Jim Jones no longer had any authority over Max's music. The court found that Max had fulfilled the obligations under both contracts he'd signed in 2005 and 2007. In simple terms, he was free, at least from the paper chains that had bound his art to someone else's wallet. Max remained behind bars, but the contract that had stolen his future was dead. He finally released his long-awaited album, Vigilante Season, in 2011. And the streets proved his influence was undeniable. The wavy cadence, the melodic gangster flow he helped pioneer, became a blueprint for a generation of rappers. Turn on the radio, and traces of Max B were everywhere, in flows, in hooks, in the culture itself. Then, in 2016, another twist reshaped his story. New attorneys argued that Max's original defense attorney had been incompetent, more interested in a payday than in building the best defense. Using a legal strategy called post-conviction relief, they successfully challenged the original sentence. The judge vacated the 75-year term. Max ultimately pled guilty to aggravated manslaughter in a plea deal, slashing 55 years off his sentence, reducing it first to 20 years, then to 12. Having already served several years, Max finally had a clear path to freedom. His life behind bars was no longer a death sentence. His official release was set for November 9, 2025, a date that would mark the return of the wavy legend to the streets and the culture that never stopped revering him.
You were sentenced to 75 years, but then last July you said you got reduced to 20 years and then to 12 years.
By this point, Max B had transcended being just a rapper. He had become a legend, a figure whose influence echoed from underground freestyles to high-profile projects like Kanye West's star-studded albums. When Kanye attempted to title his 2016 project Waves, he had to publicly acknowledge Max after the wave community called him out. Kanye even included Max's vocals on one of his tracks. Drake and Wiz Khalifa openly cited him as a key influence. Even Jim Jones, in a rare moment of honesty, admitted that Max B could have surpassed Drake if prison hadn't intervened. As 2025 approaches, one question lingers over the saga. Have Max and Jim truly buried the hatchet, or is the feud still alive? Speaking from prison, Max revealed he had changed. The old anger had softened, replaced by perspective. Now a husband and father of 4, he even hinted at the possibility of reconciliation. Jim Jones, however, wasn't on the same page. Though he and French Montana had mended their own relationship and made music together in 2023, Jim made it clear that Max was still a different matter. He didn't wish Max harm, but he wasn't ready to get comfortable either. The tension remained, a silent undercurrent in a story that had already become legendary.